Listener discretion is advised.
Everyone dabbed their eyes. Taking their meds.
Oh my God. Oh, I have to call my doctor, speaking of meds.
Yeah. Call her tomorrow.
Double it.
Double it. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to order a double this month.
Make it a double.
Make it a double of Zoloft. I'll have what she's having.
Yeah. My doctor started me on 25 milligrams, and within 3 weeks, I was like, I'm going up to 50.
Yeah, 25 is nothing.
Yeah, I was like, that was cute. I appreciate you being,
Conservative.
cautious, but it's like in a text, I'm like, I'm not making an appointment. I'm not cutting these pills in half anymore. I'm going all in. I'm going hog wild. She's like, okay, that's fine. Anyway, hashtag doc convos.
Hashtag medical advice.
Medical advice. Take it here. So this case is definitely a weird one. So hold on to your butts and get ready to talk about your theories.
Okay.
Jeremy Theodore Alex was born on April 8th, 1976. His parents, Ted and Paula, were divorced after he was born. He had one sibling. And he grew up with his mother and sister in Belfast, Maine, where he attended Belfast Area High School and played Little League Baseball.
Okay. How picturesque.
Such a sweetie. After graduating high school, Jeremy followed an unconventional path, and instead of going to college, he joined up with Greenpeace in California and traveled around the United States working with the organization and literally following the Grateful Dead and selling grilled cheese sandwiches out of his van to pay for gas.
Oh my God.
He's amazing.
What a picture of the time. Love that.
I'm just he was every guy we would have had a crush on as teenagers, a guitar player, a skateboarder, but also sweet and sensitive and loved gardening.
Sells grilled cheese.
I have
a crush on him right now.
Yeah,
we must find him.
He's basically Bliss Bleed Love.
I was just gonna say Bliss Bleed Love.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just a little peanut. So he worked with Greenpeace for a few years and returned to Maine working as a landscape gardener in Lincolnville. He had a girlfriend named Suzanne, and the two of them were making plans to move to Northport, Maine, where they had secured a lease on a little home to rent together. And Northport is an ocean town, it's right on the water.
How picturesque.
I know, right? So much promise. But just after Jeremy's 28th birthday, his parents made the drive from where they lived in New Hampshire to come celebrate with a belated birthday dinner on April 23rd, 2004. This was also as they were working on moving to their new house together. So the parents came in for dinner, drove home either that same night or very early the next morning. And the next day, Jeremy, the day after the birthday dinner, Jeremy went to his girlfriend's house around 11 a.m. to help move some items and boxes from her apartment to their new house in Northport using his van.
Okay. Of course he was a van.
Yeah, I know. Well, he sold grilled cheese out of it. He was not himself at all when he arrived at her house. And she recalled him insisting that people were after him and wanted to hurt him and kept calling them the bad men or the bad guys.
Oh no. God.
She tried to calm him down, but he grabbed some items and took off in a fit of anxiety. He made his way toward their home in Northport, but veered off course and ended up in the yard of a former high school teacher about a mile from the new house.
He drove off the, accidentally?
No, veered off of his course to the house that he's supposed to be going. It went to a different place, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He ditched his car and ran into the woods behind this former teacher's home. And it's not even clear if he knew this was her house. It's
that might have been a coincidence.
Could have been a total coincidence.
It's not like I know where any of my teachers live.
Fuck no.
Yeah.
The teacher and their spouse spotted him and came out to talk to him. Jeremy had money in his hand and told them the bad guys were after him and begged for their help and was like, I'll pay you to help me. And the teacher is like, I recognize you and none of this is making sense. And she's like, we got to call the police. And her husband is actually trying to restrain him because they were so concerned about him.
Yeah, they didn't want him to run off into the woods
and hurt
when he's
himself.
Clearly having an episode.
Yeah. But he's 28. He's strong. He broke out of whatever hug or hold the husband was trying to do, and he ran off into the woods before the police could even like be called. So like they called the police, but he was already gone. So him running into the woods is the last time Jeremy Alex was seen
Oh my
in
god.
2004.
Whoa.
The day after he ran off, so April 25th, he ran off on the 24th. This is the day after on the 25th, 2004. His van was found in the parking lot of a local humane society in Northport. Now, what isn't super clear to me is if police found his van or community members who were looking for him found his van and then called the police.
I thought he ditched his van in the yard of the teacher.
I thought he did too, and that's also not clear to me either. Like maybe he went back to his van and drove somewhere else and left it and then left, or maybe he ditched it in this parking lot really nearby and wandered off and was like making his way toward the woods, and then that's when he stumbled upon his randomly his teacher's house.
Or he
So
had
I don't
two vehicles, maybe.
No, he just had it was just his van.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't have a separate vehicle. This was his van
So
that
if
was
he
found.
emerged, it's possible he emerged from the woods and was not seen and
right,
got in
and
the
then
van
moved
and
his car.
drove. Okay.
Or this parking lot's not far from this house. So I
Okay.
also could see that he ditched his car in the parking lot, and then he made his way
Stumbled
toward
into
the
the
woods, and that's how he ended up in this yard. I think that's more likely than
Okay.
him coming back out of the woods and moving his car, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
So, his van was found in the parking lot of a local humane society in Northport. His cell phone and keys were left in the van, which is not good. The police used Jeremy's cell phone to contact his parents. There was like an entry for dad in his cell phone. The parents hadn't heard from him since their dinner a few days prior, but like he's a 28-year-old man, he's moving, so they're not thinking anything of it. It's been
Right.
2 days since they heard from their son. So understandably, they are shocked when it isn't Jeremy on the phone, but it's the police. And they drove back
God.
immediately to be with Suzanne, the girlfriend, to help in the investigation. I can't even, like, fucking getting a phone call like that would be a goddamn
So
nightmare.
Suzanne had seen him earlier that day.
Yep. The
yeah.
morning
The day
that
he
he was
disappeared.
acting weird, he
Right.
left with some of their stuff.
Right.
I mean, presumably to go to the new house.
And then
And-
the next day.
The next day, it's like, just
the
kidding. We
police get
found his
involved.
van. Yep. And
Okay, so she
this
didn't have,
teacher
like,
is,
Enough
sure she-
time to report
yeah,
him
I'm
missing.
sure she was like, what the fuck is going on? He's not acting right. And we'll kind of get to it.
Right.
But I think I understand why she didn't call the police right away. But I don't suspect Suzanne in any way. I think
no,
that
I
she
don't
knew.
either. I was just.
I think she's experienced this behavior from Jeremy before. And when we kind of get to what might be triggering that behavior, I think she was just trying to like let things
let
play
it
out,
play out. Yeah.
and never expected that things would go in this direction.
And also, they're spanning residences. So if he's
Yup.
not spending the night with
Maybe
her,
he
she
stayed
could
at the
assume-
house.
Right.
Maybe
exactly.
he went back to his apartment to like cool off.
Right.
I mean, I'd probably be texting Bill like furiously and his friends to try and figure out where the fuck he was if he was gone for just a day after like some really weird behavior. But I don't even know if in the first 12 to 24 hours I would immediately call the police.
This
You know what I
is
mean?
Also
no,
the
I probably
70s
wouldn't.
too. Like,
Right. This
No, no,
this
he was
would-
born. This was 2004.
He was born in the 70s. This is 2004.
oh, okay.
He has a cell phone. He was 28 when this happened.
Oh, okay.
He just had kind of a 70s vibe.
Yes.
That's why
yes.
you thought that.
would-
Because the van
I
and the
heard
Grateful Dead.
1970 whatever, and yeah.
1976 is when he was born.
Gotcha.
Yep. So in an effort to protect herself and also Jeremy, like he had been living and adhering to like a pretty straight edge lifestyle, but he had also dabbled in drugs throughout a lot of his life. I mean, he literally followed the Grateful Dead around. So like, what do you expect? But it was to a point where it's pretty clear that he had a substance use problem.
But he was like,
But he had been sober for a while, but he was using again. So and Suzanne knew this. He'd recently been using drugs, and they were hard drugs like cocaine and heroin.
Okay, so he'd been straight edge and sober. He had used, he had gone sober, and then now he had started reusing. Okay.
Correct. And Suzanne, again, she's aware of this. I don't know how much she's involved in it, but in an effort to protect them both, she flushed the stash in their home down the toilet before the police arrived at her apartment so that she wouldn't get, like, taken up on drug charges, or that he wouldn't for possession when he was found, which, like, I'd probably do the same thing.
the same thing, too.
Yeah, she's in her 20s, but it does, looking back on it, it's like, well,
I mean,
if only
it
they could
doesn't-
have tested what he had taken.
Right. That detail, yes. But it didn't really, like, fuck with the investigation, really. And it didn't blow up on her. That's just a detail that was included. But she did tell his parents and investigators that Jeremy had been using and that it was, like, not just possible, but likely this was contributing to some erratic behavior and, like, paranoia. And she'd seen some of this behavior from him before and could typically, like, calm him down. And she was like, but it did not work this time. And he took off and I haven't heard from him in 24 hours. So thinking that he may have induced some sort of psychosis or maybe overdose somewhere, the police combed the dense forests in the area that he took off in, looking for any signs of Jeremy or, you know, tragically his remains. But nothing was found. Like not a footprint, not a scrap of clothing, not a torn, not like a piece of trash.
Not a sneaker. Yeah.
Nothing. Not a fucking crumb.
That is wild. So
And-
he didn't have like a history as far as we know of like schizophrenia or like mental health stuff. It was just the substance use.
As far as we know, no, but he's also 28.
Right.
And so he's very much in that age range where
In that demographic.
right, where schizophrenia can start to truly present. And if he's also using, it can exacerbate those symptoms.
Right.
So I certainly wonder, because the whole idea of like the bad men are coming for me is like a very common
Yeah.
delusion.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought process went there as well. I don't know though. There's no like on paper definitive
There's no
diagnosis.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So the case basically goes cold at this point. They're like, we have fucking nothing. And this is from the Charlie Project, which is one of our favorite organizations devoted to finding missing persons. Quote, in September 2004, a contractor in Jackson, Maine, about 45 minutes away from Northport, reported seeing a man who matched Jeremy Alex's description. He says he was working on a house with this man who had a sweater tied around his waist, or when this man who had a sweater tied around his waist came out of the woods. The man was acting strangely, would not speak, and did not seem to understand anything spoken to him. He was like catatonic. The contractor offered him food, but the man refused. Another person living nearby says he also saw this unidentified man and that he also believes he was Jeremy Alex. The second witness says the man came to his garage but would not answer questions and eventually walked away after being told to leave. These sightings have not been confirmed but are considered credible. And this would have been, let's see, April, May, June, July, August, September. 5 months after he'd taken off into the woods.
Wow.
Oh my
And
God.
like, he'd lived on the road for a long time. He kind of knew how to like, he had like environmental skills. It's not implausible. Yeah. Like not even impossible. It's like, it's not even implausible
They
to
were
think that he
warm
could
months.
survive.
Yeah, they
Warmer
were
months.
warm months.
Yep. He's not going to die from exposure necessarily between April and September. So
Whoa.
he could have been just kind of surviving. Maybe that he was sighted because he might have been scavenging,
Wow.
you know? So like he could have just been wandering around.
If a
It's possible.
if a person
all that
has
time.
like a psychotic break, do they kind of come out of it after a certain period of time?
I
Some
really
sort
don't
of
know.
clarity?
I don't know.
And I'm sure it's just different for everybody. I don't know.
4 or
Depends
5
on the
months,
break.
so yeah.
What's the main phrase? No hard knowing or whatever?
Hard knowing, not
Hard,
telling.
Hard.
Let me look. I already forgot it.
But also, like, even if he kind of came out of, so to speak,
Yeah.
a psychotic break,
hard telling, not knowing.
hard telling, not knowing, he's also, I mean, the isolation and the effect on your mental health that just like wandering through the woods
Well, it
alone
explains
for
not
months.
being able to speak. If he
Right.
hasn't spoken to another human in months
Right.
and has been totally isolated, then not being able to interact like that does make a little bit of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. It's very eerie.
Mhm.
And the
Wow.
fact that, like, we can be pretty confident that it's him, but there's, like, nothing on camera,
Right.
no photo. We don't
know for sure. It could be somebody totally
We
else.
don't.
Could be a
Yeah, we don't.
Sasquatch.
We don't definitively know that it was Jeremy, which is really fucking upsetting.
Mhm.
So, despite some leads, still nothing could point investigators directly to Jeremy. 4 years passed without any movement on this case when suddenly, in April of 2008, Jeremy's driver's license was discovered to be in the possession of a married couple who had built a home in Northport, the exact town in Maine that Jeremy and Suzanne were moving to.
What? Why?
This part's really fucking, well, I'll tell you, it's fucking weird.
Tell us.
I'm telling you right now. They started construction of the home in May of 2004, about a month after Jeremy had disappeared. They were working on the house when they started to notice that money was washing up on shore. Like, this is an oceanfront home. About $30 total washed up over the course of several days, and then the ID. The couple had a bowl on their coffee table that was filled with just like treasures that had washed up from the tide, and they put the license and the money in that bowl.
Okay.
They kept these items assuming this was like a lost wallet in the ocean situation, and it wasn't until years later, after they had found this stuff, so now in 2008, that they recognized from the missing persons posts and stuff that the ID belonged to Jeremy, but it's not even them who recognized it right away. This is the crazy part of the story. Well, it's all crazy, but this is even wilder. So how they figured this out is super weird. So the husband of this couple passed away in 2008. And after the funeral, family friends went back to the house that they had built, where the fucking bowl is,
Yeah.
to gather and eat together. And one of the friends in attendance was a retired highway patrol officer.
Oh.
And he saw the driver's license in the bowl on the table and was like, y'all, this kid's been missing for, 4 or 5 years.
Holy fucking shit.
Like, why the fuck do you have this? And she was like, oh, this is our bowl of like weird shit that just washes up from the
Oh
ocean.
my god.
Which I completely believe that.
Oh,
it
like,
sounded
that's-
so sketchy at first, but as soon as you said they just keep a
Yeah.
bowl of weird shit
I
that washes
have
up.
several
They
bowls
hadn't
like
even
that.
they hadn't even spent the cash. Like, they just put all the weird shit, like all the
Yeah.
treasures that wash up in the bowl.
That tracks.
They
for
have
me.
no connection to this case
Yeah.
whatsoever. They are not suspects. It's
Right.
just like the weirdest fucking thing.
Right. It's like how I used to collect shit that we
Yes.
found in the dirt in our yard because like my house used to be like a pharmacy in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Oh,
when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And there was
So
always
everything
just, like,
was a
weird
treasure.
shit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Treasures.
So this retired cop calls this weird shit into the police and turns the items over. This home that they built too, where like this shit washed up, was nestled by the same woods that Jeremy had ran off into, which also included cliffs over the ocean.
Shit.
So is it possible that Jeremy like went over the cliffside while wandering through the woods?
Dashed
also
on the rocks
possible-
below.
It's
Mhm.
also possible that he thought he was being tracked.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that there was a tracker in his wallet, and he threw the wallet over
Ditched
the
his
cliff.
stuff.
Or he
He
wanted
easily
to
could have
fake
ditched
his
it.
own death to get
Yeah.
away.
Right.
Yep.
But I feel like you'd leave more than that if you're trying to fake your own death, because that's the only stuff that's been found. No clothing, nothing.
Maybe he
I
did
think
leave
part of-
it and they just never found it.
Maybe. The ocean's
I-
unruly, man.
I could see him chucking his wallet into the ocean because he thought there was a tracker.
I could 1,000% see that. I could 1,000% see that. So despite a $20,000 reward for information on his whereabouts, his family is still left with many questions and no answers, and no Jeremy. So Ted Alex, Jeremy's father, is convinced that Jeremy got wrapped up in some bad business with drugs. Quote, my personal opinion is that Jeremy was the victim of foul play, he said. He got himself in over his head. I think that was the result. I understand where Ted's coming from here, but I feel like there'd be some evidence.
Yeah, or like Suzanne would say eventually
Right,
like he
that
was
she'd
dealing,
know something. Yeah.
instead of just using. Because like there's a huge difference.
Yeah, there really is. I don't know. I don't know.
Unless she was afraid
I'm-
for her well-being also.
Right.
True. It's totally possible. It's totally possible that things got out of hand. But I feel like that's just
That doesn't
unlikely.
explain the
behavior.
behavior to the teachers.
Yep. It
Unless
really
you take
doesn't.
what he said literally and it wasn't a delusion and he really was literally running from bad existing men.
Mhm.
right,
I guess.
which like
That's what I'm
if
saying.
he
If he's
were-
running from drug
he were-
people or something.
But if he were actively running away and being chased, wouldn't anybody
I don't think
be
you'd
able
go in the woods.
Well, wouldn't anybody be able to witness the people chasing you? Like there's no mention of anyone hot on his trail or going to his apartment after he took off or like anything.
I
Right.
feel like it is a delusion.
I think
I
so,
don't think
too.
they're real people chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right. I
if we
agree.
are to believe that the person who these multiple witnesses saw several, like 4 months later, if that was also Jeremy,
Mm-hmm.
that
I think it
timeline,
was.
that amount of time just makes no sense. Like if he was on drugs, it would have fucking worn off. If he
It
had
wouldn't
a
have been the
break,
drugs. It would have had to be. It would have had to be
a
some
psychological
sort of
issue.
psychological, event that was ongoing.
That's personally where I'm leaning because maybe I'm just wishfully thinking, but like
so drastic.
I really
though.
want that sighting of Jeremy to be real because then that would indicate that he could potentially be surviving somewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
But-
just so dramatic and drastic. Yeah.
I don't know.
know.
I mean, I also just don't think it's that crazy because he was living like a very nomadic lifestyle for a long time. Like,
But-
it's not unlike him to just kind of travel around in his van and kind of camp out. Obviously, he ditched his van, but if he's like
and he
experiencing,
could like not, he could have left the woods and just become unhoused
right?
somewhere else.
Barefoot
after
bandit
that
situation.
sighting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, if he's experiencing some like serious psychosis,
Yeah.
and he, think of how we as a society treat the unhoused. Like, if he's wandering around in dirty clothes.
Yeah. People
Partly
aren't going to get
catatonic.
near him.
People are literally like, get the fuck away from my house.
Right.
Like it would be easy for him to slip through the cracks, frankly,
Right.
even with people looking for him. His appearance could be totally different. He could be
Right.
super bearded and like
Right.
disheveled.
He could look like the Burt's Bees guy.
He could. I don't know. I think it's possible. I
Or
really
he could
do.
have later, passed away in the woods after that last sighting, like when things started to get cold.
That's kind of what I think happened, and we'll get to it. But I do think that sighting was him. I do
Uh-huh.
think that he was living off the grid
Mm-hmm.
in a state of psychotic distress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I unfortunately believe that he likely passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he likely went into the water. If he didn't chuck his wallet in there,
Mm-hmm.
that could explain how the wallet and the money washed up.
Mm-hmm.
Or how the ID and the money washed up. No wallet, but like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the fucking worst situation, but it just feels the most plausible to me.
Right.
But so in regards to the large reward for information, sadly, it's brought in nothing more than rumors and theories and some assholes just trying to get that money. Ted said in an interview, quote, "We've obviously had a lot of people ask about it with bad intentions. It's kind of the underbelly of things. We've dealt with each one. We need a body." That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That's a poor fucking family.
Yeah.
So message boards and internet sleuths have been analyzing this case, obviously, for years because it's super bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Some wonder if the couple who found the ID could have been part of this, but most think they were just like kind of shitty for not turning that stuff into the police right away, but also like treasures you find washed up on a beach. You're not going to
Yeah.
immediately be like, this could be a dead or missing person.
You find all kinds of stuff washed
I'd
in on
probably
the shore.
plop it in a bowl too and be like, oh, some dum-dum lost their wallet. Oops.
I probably would have Googled it, the name, but
yes, I think our Facebooked it. I probably would have done that.
It
and been
sounds like
hey,
the
I found your
couple were
stuff.
maybe elderly.
I think they were older.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And if
I think they're just taking beach walks in their
Yeah.
old bone bodies.
Retirement.
and you're not
whatever.
under no obligation to report
You're not.
something like that.
I mean, people fucking go over the beaches all the time with metal detectors and just keep what they find.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I
that
feel
kind of
like
shit.
if the ID was current and not expired, I probably would
Mhm.
turn it in.
And I don't know that.
If like it's like from Maine, if it was like from a completely different state, I probably wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But like if it was still current, I'd probably bring it to the police and drop it off.
I mean,
I've found
Nothing else.
I've found
but an ID.
2 different driver's licenses just on the
Really?
floor, on the ground, and I've returned them both times.
You're so
Good for
good.
you.
Speaking from experience, but also if it were to wash up on the shore, that's like more exciting.
Yeah. And if it was
Yeah.
expired, then I would just put it in my curiosities bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Put
for
it in
sure.
the bowl. Put it in the
Yeah.
bowl. Sorry, I'm just giving myself some insulin for the pizza that I had. So yeah, they are not connected to
I
Jeremy's
don't think
disappearance.
so.
They're just not. Some believe he fell to his death in the ocean, and the tides and like ocean creatures have made the remains disappear.
Yeah.
But then things that are like less, likely to break down or easier to float up on shore, like a plastic ID or even like fucking mummies made of like a weird fabric. Plastic
It's made
fiber.
of like cotton.
Yeah, but it's like dipped. So I don't know. It can survive some shit. But other folks think there is more to it than this. One Redditor under the username Gil1994 wrote, quote, "So I learned about this case years ago and haven't been able to drop it since. I'm from Massachusetts, but my grandmother lived in Northport, Maine, and I spent a ton of time there when I was younger. I've been trying to do enough research on this case to start a podcast, don't do it, or write a piece on it. But honestly, there isn't much on the internet about it, or at least that I've seen at all." And that's true. There weren't like a ton of details. I just did a lot of my own sleuthing. "Everyone wants to say that he was in a drugged or paranoid state and that he drowned or died in the woods. But everyone from Northport and Belfast is a small fishing town right next to Northport,
It's his hometown.
knows that there was foul play involved. Everyone from Belfast knows that Cameron Philbrook, who is now dead, according to this person, but I actually think other people on this comment thread commented being like, no, he's still alive. So I don't know. Killed him. Everyone there knows there are police officers, including Belfast police chief, that helped cover this up. And when people say police cover up, it sounds like some crazy idea they have, but it really wasn't so crazy or implausible, and it did happen.
All right. Well, who the fuck is Cameron Philbrook?
Oh, we'll get to it. Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.